I had never had a work culture or a workplace where I felt this way, or where I could just pull one of you guys aside and be like, hey, I'm dealing with this. I really need some help. Like, can you help me?
We played some small role inside of that to like create that opportunity. And now it's continuing to happen and you're creating opportunities for other people. What advice would you give to potential buyers who are considering purchasing or building a barndominium for the first time?
So advice I would give is
what's up, guys, and welcome to the Barndo Show. I am your host, TJ, and I got my man Ross here. And today we have got the lady, myth, and legend, Miss Olivia.
hi.
So, welcome to the Barndo Show. You've been here since like day one. You're the first sales agent,
the OG,
that was not TJ Norris.
Right.
It's awesome, right? So you got to experience me imparting all my wonderful wisdom.
Yes, all the TJ talks.
So no, like what's funny is when this thing got to be like bigger than just two guys in a truck, like we were like, we got to hire some salespeople, we got to do all this stuff. And I remember that was kind of like sink or swim for me, because it was like, can anyone else do this? You know, is there really something here to where we could hire someone and they could come in and create not just a living, but like be able to take what we have and create an opportunity to scale the business. And I remember you came in and we interviewed, and me and you had like had conversations. I think you were kind of watching from the beginning, and we're very interested in Barndos. And then, you know, you came in and we hired you, and, you know, let's talk a little bit about that. So like you're still a licensed agent with our brokerage, but right. How long had you been a real estate license holder at that point in time?
I had been in real estate for about a year and a half. And then I saw you post on Facebook, and me and my fiance, we were super interested in Barndos for ourselves. And I was just thinking what a cool opportunity it would be to work with a company, learn about Barndos, and then be able to build one eventually. So I reached out to you, sent in my resume, and in true TJ fashion, did not get a response. And then I tracked down your assistant at the time, and I saw that she was going to a networking event through the HBA here in Greenville. And I was like, well, I'm going to go to this networking event. I'm going to track her down. I'm going to get this interview. And I went just to talk to her. Went to this networking event, talked to Tatiana, got the interview, came in and met with you in person. And you sold me on a big dream. And I remember getting in the car, and I was like, I just don't know. Like, I don't have money to really like float this without working a part-time job. So I was working part-time at the time when I joined Barndo. And then I was like, I'm just going to take a chance. I was like, I want to do this. I was like, in the worst case scenario, I end up leaving. And here I am.
Yeah. You've been with us almost 2 years now.
I had no idea
almost
of
2
this
years.
story.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, it's super. What's funny is that I remember when she came in the next morning from that, she was like, she handed me your card. She's like, this lady literally walked straight up to me and was like, I want to work here.
Yep.
And so we set up an interview, and you came in, and, you know, that was like the beginning. And I like at that point, you have to take everything that's in your head and like figure out how to put that on paper and teach someone to do something. And so it was a big learning curve for me, because, you know, I know a lot of stuff in my mind, and Ross and I could work together pretty easily because we just on the same page with a lot of stuff. And that was because, you know, we'd been together for a couple of years at that point. We kind of know what the other one's thinking all the time. So, you know, you came in and I was like, oh boy, here we go. Everything's hinging on this.
Yep.
And you're like my biggest success story. So like every time I interview people now, I always tell the Olivia story. Like, hey guys, I know where you are. You know, you're kind of new in the real estate thing. You don't know if you know, have all the experience necessary, and you're in this like weird imposter syndrome kind of thing. Like, am I really this person? Do I really have what it takes? And then, you know, some people just have je ne sais quoi. And I feel like you had that. And so, you know, we just went in, and the rest is history. You know, I remember like when we onboard new agents, I always tell them you have 100 days of hell, because it really takes a minute to build your pipeline up, because you're having conversations like day one, And I think that was the most intimidating part for most people, because you just get a list of names. You're like, what do I do with them? You're like, just call and talk to them. And then, it was about 30 days, and then it just clicked. And at that point, like we had a one-on-one conversation, and it was like you left that day, I think, and onboarded a client like that afternoon. And then it just kind of started building from there. And, and then now fast forward, and you won like the top agent award. You push more revenue through the company than anybody, and you won the B award. So we're sitting here with the best. So and that's cool because the company votes on that. So to be in a room with your peers and they're like, who's the B, right? Which in my opinion is like, that's a pretty top notch award to be like the best at everything they do. And everybody was like Olivia. It was like a landslide. So, and I agree 100%. So, kind of backing up a little bit, let's talk a little bit like that. Like, I'm going to lean into this because there may be someone listening, because we're always growing and expanding and going into new markets. And a lot of people like are so hesitant to have that call because they feel like maybe, I don't know. I don't know if I have what it takes. So like, if you were to talk to your old self now, right? You're a new agent, you're courting the idea of coming in and working here. Like, what would you say?
I would say just trust your gut instinct. Coming in as, first of all, someone who didn't have a ton of real estate experience, I wasn't attached to any ideas. I didn't have to come in and break bad habits or break that realtor mindset, because it's a little bit different when you work with a new construction builder and you're their sales consultant. It's just a little bit of a different mindset shift of like where your loyalties lie and kind of how your role is as a sales consultant managing between the builder and the client. So I would say just trust your gut instinct. It's not as scary as it seems, but it does take a lot of hard work. And I think sometimes when you're getting into real estate, you think, oh, I'll just like sell homes. Like it'll be super easy. It's not that easy. And then I think once you get to the new construction side, it's even a little bit more difficult because people are spending their whole bank account with you, pretty much their whole life savings, all their investments. They're putting them in your faith into you. And so you do have to come in with some confidence. And I think my 30-day turnaround was just gaining that confidence and learning from you. You had given us like a bunch of like little tidbits of information, like here's some average price per square foot numbers, and this is generally how we build, and here's this and this. And we just had to take that and run with it and really sell the client on the confidence that we don't know all the answers, but we will get this done. And you're just going to have to work with us along the way.
Yep. But the process has just gotten so much better because we've had so many more, reps. I talk about this all the time. The more reps you get, the better you get, at the whole overall process, and so in the beginning, you guys were like leaning into me and then asking construction questions, Ross, and like, it was just this big dynamic back and forth to basically build the model that we use to this day. And it's always improving. Like we just met this week to kind of go back in and put a stamp on how we're going to move forward with sales and all these new markets and all these different things. And, speak into that a little bit. So like, I think people sometimes have a preconceived notion of like how a builder arrives at pricing. And I can't speak to anybody but us in this regard, but talk about that a little bit. Like, I think some of that gets lost in translation, that they think that we just are like, yeah, we'll just make extra money here. And that's not necessarily true. We're always monitoring where we're at in the marketplace, how that goes over to appraisals, how we bring that back to get somebody into a budget, and then all the things that are determined inside of that budget so that when you're selling at this, price per square foot, or you're selling a fixed rate contract, that consumer then has confidence that when they sign, I'm definitely building my house for this amount of money. And that's kind of a guarantee that we put on it, right? And a lot of builders don't do that because they're working off of a cost plus model or something, and they get close. So I'm not saying that cost plus models guaranteed that you're going to spend more money, but there's no guarantee you're not.
Right.
So talk about that a little bit, like how we arrive at some of these prices, and like when you're having conversations with clients, how that feedback comes back and how we're able to like take all that frontline information and come up with a game plan so that we've got the client's best interest in mind.
Right. And I think a lot of that comes through the onboarding process. So the client gets all of that front end information. They're not signing a contract up front and we're going to figure out the details later. We're going to work with you to figure out the details on the front end, from design to finishes to site prep, before you move on to signing that contract. So I think there's a little bit of trust between us and the client. Like, hey, we're not asking you to commit to anything until we deliver you a final price and you like that price. And if you don't like it, we'll make those adjustments to fix it. I think we do get a lot of feedback from clients about finishes that they like and then finishes that just aren't performing well that we can kind of ditch over time. So I think they do help us in that regard. And then onboardings also kind of fluctuate based off of, our pricing model and kind of how that's looking. Obviously, there are other Barndo builders in the market, so people are usually builder shopping, which is completely fine. I do recommend that any client, shop your builder. Like, don't just take my word for it. Go talk to other builders as well. And if they're a better fit, then they're a better fit for you. So I think their feedback does help us a lot. The pricing model that we have now is something that I think has been refined over a long period of time. We did start with it where it was more in its infancy stages, and then we kind of ditched it, went to a different model, and now we're back there. And I think we're in a sweet spot now to where it's more refined, it's more structured in terms of what we're including, what's an upgrade. And I think it gives clients the ability to look through that list and they can tell you, okay, I'm going to be this client, a base level client. I'm not looking for upgrades. I'll do those on my own. Or you might find a client who's like, none of this matches what I'm looking for. I want to be a custom client. I want to hand select all of my finishes. And it just kind of helps you gauge where that client's going with their build, their project, and just better assisting them along the way, because not every client's going to be the same.
Right. So you can speak into this, Ross. So everything for me, because, sales is kind of like my lifeblood. We're always attacking everything from like client first perspective, right? And a lot of times, like, people don't see this, but it's a battle inside, because there is a bottom line to running a business, right? And so in the construction side, the evolution that we've had as a builder to be able to catch these little minor mistakes, because even the smallest nuance in language in the field turns into a nightmare. Yeah. So like, from kind of talk about like the pushback from like the production side, why we have to address these things head on and stuff like that when it comes to time to build. Because in the beginning, we never had anyone who was upset with the price for their home. The point of tension with a client experience is always in the production of that home. And so talk a little bit about how that pricing ties into production.
Yeah, so it's always an ever-growing process. So it's really cool. I was sitting here watching you. And so what you get right now is super professional. But what y'all don't realize is this was a family situation where we were like, come, and we got to see her grow. Yep. And so in a non-disrespectful way. Like, it was like a kid to us, where we groomed her to go sell, And so I remember the first day you walked in and you were like, I think I'm going to step out of my position and train people. And I had a panic attack, because I was like, it's so good right now. Like, everything's fine. You're in control. And so when he did that, rest assured, you saw my face, because I was like, this is not going to be good. So it is very, very important on the back end. We were talking about this yesterday with some of our salespeople, that the new people that come in, they may be able to ring that bell over and over and over, but until they hit that wall of production, we will really know if they were a good salesman or not, because of the thoroughness of their contracts. And so the more thorough they are, the more things that are outlined that are not up for grabs that we just have to guess at, the better production gets, correct?
Right.
And so Olivia, in the first days, you saw me a lot. And now I come to her where I'm like, hey, I need to get your opinion on this a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's become an ever growing process for us as owners, as well as sales agents, as well as production, but it keeps the bottom line from moving. Right. And so the more standardized process that we can get, the better off Ross doesn't have a heart attack and TJ gets to flow.
Yeah, well, so, the thing is people need to understand that this is a very hard thing to achieve, to be able to look a client in the eye and say, this is your price, okay? and we will not deviate from this. And so to be able to give people a guarantee in like, especially through COVID and even now, this is it's uncertainty in the marketplace still. People are anticipating rate drops. People are anticipating all these different things. And in construction, I mean, we're day one. Like, you have an event take place, unprecedented. Like, it could be war, it could be like a COVID outbreak, something like that. Immediately goods go through the roof, right? And so there's a lot of having to monitor the market and understand what's coming, and a lot of conversations between us and suppliers to be able to have a very good indication of what we can get materials for, and then to take all that and put all that hard work up front. That makes us a little bit different because, again, we're not in a scarcity mindset where we're just trying our best to get deposits from people. How many times, are you slowing down clients and saying, hey, before we sign papers, let's make sure this is a fit. And that's kind of that onboarding model that we do all the time. But there's an internal conflict all the time. Sales constantly is coming to the table going, here are all the hurdles for my clients. And so then we look at it internally, and it's like a war is happening behind the scenes to make sure that we can deliver a price that we feel like is the market standard or what people are expecting. And what does that include, and how we can do this and how we can navigate that. Because, like I say, the biggest point of contention is in production, and we've made leaps and bounds improvements in our ability to build. And a lot of those challenges were going from building a couple homes to building hundreds of homes at one time. That anybody's going to have ridiculous uphill battles inside of that. But being in part of the sales side of that, like, talk about that a little bit. Like, you have a conversation with a client, and your objective is not to get them to commit to building a barndo that day. Your objective is honestly to convince them otherwise, because you want them, if they're going to come in and do this, you want them to have all the information. And so when they sign on the dotted line, there's a very clear expectation of what we've got, what we can deliver, what they're to receive, a timeline in which we can do it, and how all that works. And then you get a lot of feedback from the clients of, like, all the things they're unhappy about, and then at the end we get a lot of like, this was great, thank you so much, but in the beginning you don't ever hear that. It's right. Here's my problem, this is a problem, here's my other problem. And so, like, talk about a little bit of how you navigate that as a sales agent, and especially being like one of the top producers, because you have a huge book of business that you're managing so many people, and some of the things we've done to safeguard against that, because, also to your own downfall, being so good on the phone, you can have too many clients. Mm-hmm. And so there's such a delicate balance in workload and all that. So talk a little bit about that. Like, when a client gets on your calendar, right? And you're going to call them, just walk through that first phone call from your perspective of how you navigate them through the process to get them to a point where they're signing a contract.
Right. So when they schedule that initial call on my calendar, it's a discovery call. We're just looking to cover general information with them, get an idea of their current land situation, what they're looking for plan-wise, do they have a budget in mind, and then really just covering any general questions that they have about the process. So a lot of people come in, they've been a part of the Barndo Facebook groups, they've chatted with their buddy, they've talked to the lender, and the lender tells them it's difficult to get financing. So they come in with a lot of hesitation because they see us producing all these barndos if they follow us on social media, and they're wondering, how do we do this? Everybody's telling us no. Everybody's telling us this is a bad idea. You need to tell us why it's a good idea. And so I don't really come at it from a point of, I need to convince you, but I'm just going to give you the information. And then you need to make a decision for yourself as the adult here. So we go through general information. I usually chat with them about pricing, of course, budget. And one thing for me is really trying to wrangle budget on the front end. So I'm very upfront with my clients or potential clients about what's going to fit within their budget, not designing to their max budget, leaving some wiggle room, because everybody wants an upgrade. It may be 1, it may be 10, but somebody somewhere, you want that upgrade, you want the tile shower, you want the backsplash, you want those things. And if you don't leave that wiggle room, you're designing at the very top of your budget, you're not going to have that space, you're going to get sticker shock. So budget's a big thing for me on the front end, is wrangling that before you sign your contract. And I'll even double down with them before they onboard and just say, hey, let's just revisit the numbers, make sure we're all on the same page before you pay this money to onboard, before we start designing. Because I've definitely had clients who, a couple clients that I'm working through right now, one's in finance and one's cash. And they were my first 2 clients to ever onboard. And they walked through our process the first time. And, things changed so much during those early months that I was here. And they ended up walking away. They were like, you know what, we're going to revisit this. We just don't think this is the right time for us. They came back. They've gone through our process a second time now. And now they've gone through, they've done finance. They've sent us the cash deposit, and they're ready to build with us. And I think that does speak to not only our process and our culture as a company, because they are willing to revisit with us, but also, they're also committed, and the client has to be committed as well to the process. So just walking them through this, it's some things we can negotiate on. You have that softer conversation with them, and some things are a bit more direct. It's like, this is just how it is, and you either have to agree with it, this is our build process, or go elsewhere. And sometimes that's a hard conversation to have, because some clients are looking for something so specific to them that there's not really going to be many builders out there unless they're a highly custom builder, that's 250 plus per square foot, that's going to get them there. And it's really hard to wrangle their vision and just tell them, hey, we're looking to get you a base canvas, and from there, you make it your own. And I think that's hard for some clients to understand, is we're not looking to build. Sometimes we're building you the dream house. Absolutely. But sometimes we're getting you that base canvas, and you're going to make it your own and add your touches, and that's going to be your dream house. So I think with clients and just walking them through, you do have to meet them where they are, but you also have to be very direct with certain things and just tell them, this is our policy, this is what we do, and this is how we build. And if this doesn't fit, then maybe we need to revisit. Maybe we need to have further conversations. But you can't bend on everything.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that builds confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately.
Well, it should. And again, it goes back to, we operate out of abundance. We tell people on the front end, hey, we're going to get you all this information. Go shop other builders, and you spoke to it. You had people that left because they're like, we'll find what we're looking for.
Yep.
And then 6-8 months later, where are they? They're back at the table having a conversation, because what they realize is there's really no one is going to give all these things away. Just we end up having that direct conversation kind of day one in the first week, where other builders, it might take to the back end of the process where they have that conversation. It's not to say we're perfect, but we're trying to be. Right. Okay. And so, you just kind of provide people facts, right? Facts, not feelings. This is it. And then we process their feedback the same way. What are the facts? Because people get unhinged, right, when they get upset about something, and you can't take this complaint and provide a solution. You're not going to solve their feelings.
Right.
But you can solve the facts. And so if the fact is that this is a material fact, that this is a problem, we can fix that. And we've done that. We're continuously improving and trying to get there, every single step of the way. Every client makes us a better builder for the next client. And that's just the way it's always going to be. If you're in a position where you want to be the best, right? If you want to get better, a lot of builders get to a point, and I can understand why, to be like, I don't care. I don't care what they say. I don't care about that. This is what we do, the end. And they draw a line in the sand, and that's how they operate. And I end up being the one to prevent us from becoming that, because it's frustrating, right? When you're out here and you're like, it seems like you take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, or 1 step forward and 2 steps back. And then, but that's building something that's great, right? Is the only way to get it there is you have to go through chaos, adequate, good, and step into great. You don't just arrive at greatness. And so, it's just constantly navigating those hurdles and stuff like that. But leaning back into the company itself. So talk about inside the company, like core values. People hear us talk about it all the time, and there's no greater feeling in my body than to have an employee that says, this is my favorite core value, and this is how they live by it. And like, it's not just words that we put up on the wall. It's really who we are. So like, which one of our core values would you say is your favorite? And then like, just kind of dive into that for me.
Well, I got an award for the B in Barndo, which is the best. So I do have to say that's probably my favorite, only because I really...
No.
Only because I really strive hard, I think, to really put my best foot forward with every client. I try to make every client experience valuable. I try to assist other team members. I really try to help the production team and make that a smooth process for them as they transfer over. If they have questions or if they need something, I really try to step back in and help with them. And I think that's my favorite from a work standpoint. From a personal standpoint, it's just being here has kind of opened up my eyes to a different way to live life almost. We value balance a lot here and being present for your family, being present at home, whether that's, family, friends, events that you have. And so it's one of those things where it's not just people you work with, it's people that you spend a lot of time with, on a daily basis. And sometimes I spend more time at the office than I do at home. So I really have to love you guys, and I do. And I think, within the company, it's really, there's a lot of friendships. There's a lot of different personalities, but somehow we all make it work. It's just like a little personality soup in the office.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really fun. There's more laughs and smiles in the office than I think there are bad days. And I think there's definitely situations where, there's tension or we really just need to work on this and figure it out. But it's never we don't love each other. It's just we're in a hard spot right now and we got to work through it. And so I think, seeing that from a work standpoint, I had never had a work culture or a workplace where I felt this way or where I could just, pull one of you guys aside and be like, hey, I'm dealing with this. I really need some help. Like, can you help me? And you'll sit down and help me. There's not a lot of companies out there where you can go to your manager or the owners of the company and have them sit down with you and spend one-on-one time to talk through goals or, how to build your own business or how to be better. And that's something where I feel like in my personal, finances and life in general, I have leveled up just from being here because you guys have told me things that, you're not going to learn in school. And so for me, it's been eye-opening. It's been a journey for sure. It's constant change. And that's something where I really love stability and schedules and planning. And so this has pushed me into, being a bit more uncomfortable. And I'm okay with that now. If it's a little bit awkward, I'll deal with it. It's, something that I'm internally struggling with, but I push through it. And that's something where, there's some invaluable life lessons in there to where you're not going to learn it anywhere else, but just doing it.
Sure.
And I think that's been really great here, especially.
Well, you talked about building business. So for me, I tell everybody that comes in, like, you may be here for a year, you may be here forever. But my objective is I want to be the best place you can be at the moment. Mm-hmm. If you get a better opportunity, I'm going to celebrate your success with you as you leave. And I'm going to do everything in my power to create such an environment to where you will never leave. And so, you being in sales, you're in control of your own destiny. And there are a lot of people that struggle to empower people like that because of fear. Again, talking about living in abundance or scarcity. You get in a scarcity mindset and you're like, I was in an environment like that as a sales agent, top performer. No one in the history of the company had ever closed the amount of deals that I was closing. And it felt like every quarter, every annual, I was getting chopped down, because they wanted to keep me at a certain level, because if they could control that, I could never get so big to where it was a threat to them. And the way you solve that is with good culture, right? If I build such value to you to where you're like, just being here gives me a leg up on the competition, you're going to stay. And if I try to make it where it's like, I control all your money, and that's the reason you stay, then you start harboring resentment. Yeah. And so my goal is to just empower you. So let's talk about that. You went from being a sales agent to now you have your own business, right? And you are a contractor with us. And so you're Barndo through and through. You have an office in our office and everything like that. But you have your own business. So we hire you to come in and provide your sales services within our business. And then you have employees that you've hired that are a part of your team solely. And you got a vision of how you're going to scale and grow your own team inside of the walls of this company. So talk about that. That's a big mental shift from Olivia that came in and had the conversation, who was working a part-time job and, trying to go all in on herself. And then now you don't have a ceiling, and I think you fully accept, there is no ceiling here. How has that been?
It has been a mindset shift, I think, is the hardest part for me. So, growing up, we were never like a super wealthy family. We had everything we needed and we were well taken care of. But, we weren't always going on vacations and we didn't have the nicest cars and those types of things. And so for me growing up, it was always, work your 9 to 5, pay your bills. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck, at least you're making it. At least there's food on the table. And so for me, I started out when I went into college, I wanted to be a lawyer. I really was striving for something that would make me money. Not necessarily that I even loved the idea of being a lawyer or wanted to do it. And so, finances pushed me out of that route. And I was like, well, I just need to figure out what I want to do with my life. I worked for the state for a little while, and that was an interesting time in my life. It showed me a lot to, how bad some people can have it and, to be very grateful for what you do have, even if it's not a lot. And then started real estate, was working through that. I had part-time jobs this whole time, just because getting into real estate, you're not immediately making money. And so, starting with Barndo, you sold me on this big dream of like financial freedom and, being able to really live a life that you're proud of. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, I really love what he's saying, but let's see if we can actually make this happen. So coming in, once you start seeing the deals come through and you start making this money that you haven't made before, it is something to where you have to prepare yourself and you have to have somebody to tell you like, hey, don't go crazy. Like, don't spend that whole paycheck. You need to put some aside for taxes. You're 1099 now. You need to be doing this. You need to be thinking about retirement. And so probably within the last 7-8 months, I got my LLC. So now everything runs through that now. So I can kind of protect my money a bit more. You've connected me with tax professionals and they've connected me with financial accountants. And now I have investment accounts. And now I'm building a future so that way I don't have to work until I'm 90. And those types of things are important to me because I've seen people in my family not do that. And I see where it gets you and I'm trying to just be better, And so, I remember one particular day, I had a paycheck that was quite large compared to what I'd had so far. And you came into my office and said, you were like, hey, do you know that? I was like, no. And then you wrote it on my board. And then Ross broke into my office. The door was shut. He comes in. I'm on the phone with the client. He busts in and he's like hitting my whiteboard. He's like, look at this. And it was like, for me, it was a surreal moment because I had never made that much. I mean, and I don't mean this to sound braggy and I hope it doesn't, but like that one paycheck was more than I had made in previous years, the whole year, doing waitressing and things like that. And so for me, I was like, this is insane. And I don't know how to wrangle this. I mean, I've always been pretty good with money, but it's different when you start getting that money because, the government wants their piece. So you got to do all you can to, protect it and make sure that you're doing what you can to keep it safe. And so that's been a huge shift for me is, figuring out the ins and outs of that. And luckily I've got, great connections and great people that I've started working with that are going to help me with that. And then building my business. I've had an assistant now for probably almost a year. I'm on my third assistant now, and that's not to say that I'm terrible to work with, and I keep getting rid of assistants. But
she trains them so good they start working for us.
Yeah. So my last assistant, she's now a sales consultant with us, and now my current assistant, she's looking to kind of take a step back, be more involved with her family life, and it's just kind of a good fit for her. But it's been exciting to have someone, and for me, I think it was hard to trust someone to do the job that I did as well as I did it. And so for me, it was like a big shift in I have to trust you to do this job and I can't micromanage you. And I realized I hate being micromanaged. So for me, it was like, okay, well, I can't be that person. I can't be that manager to this person. So I had to let the reins go, let them do what they were going to do, and then just give them feedback. Be like, hey, I noticed you're doing this. Let's try it this way. I think it works a little bit better from my experience, and just mold it that way instead of it being like a dictatorship where you're like, this is how you do it. This is the script. This is the email. This is how you say it, and don't deviate. I want, someone to have their own freedom to do their own thing as well. within the parameters, obviously. And I think I've had pretty good luck with assistants in doing that. My assistant now, she's a bit newer, but it's crazy to think I've even needed one. You know, I've always been a person where I'm like, well, I'll work 20 times as hard just to get it all done. And if I have to stay late, I will. But it really got to a point where it wasn't healthy. Yeah, you're staying at the office super late. It's dark outside. You're leaving. You know, you're getting home, not making it in time for dinner. You're not, you know, you're missing the birthday party. And so bringing in an assistant has given me the chance to focus on my clients, and then she can focus on scheduling and logistics and back end stuff. And so it's been a big weight off my shoulders to have a second person that's just helping me run things, essentially.
What's fun for me is we built it. Like, we built out this model, and then, like, you're able to recreate that model. And so, like, you're not just going from scratch. And that's what's super cool for me is, like, helping people. You know, we talk about this turning impossible dreams into possible realities. It's also true for people like you, you know? And so, like, you're fully in control, and, like, you don't have to do it alone. You come to me all the time and ask me little questions and stuff, and, like, we can help navigate that. And so, like, empowering you as a member of the team to grow is the greatest joy ever. That's why I was so excited for that check. Like, you know, I can tell you right now, I've had owners and VPs and stuff in companies where when you start making that kind of money, it's a completely different mentality. That the instant is how do we cut that back? Yeah. Because now there's other people in the company going to be upset. You know, me, I'm a celebrate you individual. So yes, I'm going to make a big deal out of it. Some other things that you did: you bought your first home, you bought a brand new car, you're getting married this year. Yeah. Like, it's a bunch of big stuff. Like, and for me, I'm like the happiest I could possibly be to see all that happening. And to know that we played some small role inside of that to, like, create that opportunity, and now it's continuing to happen, and you're creating opportunities for other people as well. So, huge deal.
It was cool because we got to live vicariously through it. Yeah. I mean, every time you went, we were like, yeah. And it was great. It was great. I remember the first day you pulled up in that car, and I was like, bro, I ain't going to believe this. Because I remember what you pulled up in the beginning. You really, like, dug in the trenches for a very long time. There were many a nights that I would come by your office and only the light on your door would be open, and I'd knock and go, "You okay?" And you would look at me like a wild raccoon, like, "Everything's fine." Everything's fine. And I knew you were juggling. He knew you were juggling. Man, it was great times, though.
Yeah, it was. Pre-assistant days were a little wild. It was like the Wild West. You're just like, I got to get it done. And
I'm the real part of the show. So, like, if you can speak professionally and he leads you in that, then I'm like, bruh, y'all just don't know. It was some great days.
And it was, you know, even pre-assistant, you know, buying the house, pre-making the car, I was still happy here. These were just goals that I had, you know, just as your life progresses. You know, Jesse was living several hours away. It made sense for us to buy a house together down here. I was established down here, you know, with the company. And so that was a big deal for us because our relationship had been distance for so long. The car thing, that was a goal I had because I had never bought something new for myself. I had always had used cars. And it was one of those things where the car I had she was a good car. She made it a lot of miles, but she had also been through a lot. And so for me, like, buying the new car was just one of those things where it's like I achieved a goal that I had set for so long that I genuinely didn't think I would be able to do. You know, I went to the lot that day just to look. I was like, I don't really think I should do this. And Jesse was like, we're driving all this way to look at this car. Like, are you really not going to buy it? I was like, I don't know. We'll see when we get there. And as soon as I drove it, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to buy it. Just do the thing. Like, just do the thing. And so I bought the car, and then planning the wedding this year has been exciting. It's different because, like, it feels almost like work sometimes because you're scheduling and talking to vendors. And so it lines up very much with what I do on a day-to-day. So that's kind of how I look at it sometimes. But it's been fun. I'm excited for October. I have invited some people from the company. And so I think, so I think it'll be fun to have, like, a mix of, you know, friends and family, and then also people from work who I consider family. It'll be nice to have everybody in one spot, just for a big party.
So we can celebrate you.
Yeah.
But I remember I came to you one day and I was doing these one-on-ones and I was like, we were going through all your goals and we were reverse engineering your goals and doing this whole thing. And I was like, what is your selfish goal? And it was very hard for you.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, 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 very hard for you to have one.
Yeah.
Because like all of yours were like, I got to do this for this person, and I want to be able to do this for this and this and this, and your family, and everybody was like on the list. And I was like, what is yours? And you're like, let me get back to you. Mm-hmm. And I remember you came in my office and I had sticky notes. Mm-hmm. And you're like, I want a new car. And I wrote that on a sticky note. And I said, all right, so that's the 1 year selfish goal. And then you bought a freaking house. And I was like, that's better than a car. And then and then a couple months later, you rolled up in the new car. And I was like, I still had that sticky note.
Yeah.
And I remember I pulled it out and was like, I remember when we wrote this, you didn't even think it was possible. Mm-mm. And so for me, that's like the best wins ever. So for me, like I don't, money is great. Like we do this for money. I could care less. Like for me, the win is impact, and like the impact that this company has had in your life, the impact that it has on people who are building with us. Like there's so much more to it. And again, people are going to lose their mind through the process of building.
Yeah.
Right. And they're going to think, oh my God, none of this matters, blah, blah, blah. They don't care. I do. I lose sleep at night thinking about every person's circumstances. And like he and I have had text exchanges at 2 a.m. to where I'm like, I feel really bad. Like I can't control this outcome.
Right.
But I still have empathy for where this person is, and I can see it from their perspective. The problem is oftentimes they can't see it from ours, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's why they're paying us, right? Mm-hmm. But there is a lot of stewardship with that money, that comes into that. Like, and I hope if you're watching this and you're thinking about building with us, that you hear this story, and it's not us up here flexing about how much money we make as a company. No, it's about how we're impacting lives, because there was a moment in time where we had to decide, are we impact or income driven? Mm-hmm. And we're going to be impact driven. Which leads me to my next piece, which is like, the giving portion. Mm-hmm. This is something that you kind of like embodied, and it's you're a cultural fit. And like you said, we have many different like personalities, but everybody subscribes to this culture that we have. Mm-hmm. And so like the Never Stop Giving, I remember Miracle League, you came out to the games and like you got involved with that, and it affected you. Like, and then I remember I was like scrolling through Facebook one night and I see our logo. Like we're doing some kind of charity event or something. And I'm like, I don't know. And then it was like, you were like, oh, I did that. And so like, it's just really cool. So talk a little bit about that. Like how now that you've built this base, how you also now have these same core values where you're pouring out not just company money, but like your own personal money and giving, and what that means to you.
Yeah, I think so. The Miracle League was a really cool introduction to a program and a group of people that I may have otherwise never known about or interacted with. And we are super excited for spring volunteers. We signed up for those yesterday. But I think I've always loved working with kids. And so for me, I was like, that's a natural fit. Like, let me go have fun with these kids. And they are truly some of the happiest people you'll ever meet on this planet. And they have every reason not to be, but they just are. And so it's a really good time. There's no better use of, a few hours, a few nights, of the season to go spend with these kids. And so I got a couple opportunities in the past several months to kind of sponsor a couple things on my own with Barndo Co. And so one of those was the Burnout for Kids event. And that's a really cool event that a promoter, his name is Nate Prater, he does these a couple times a year. And he donates all the money to the children's hospital. He buys them Christmas presents and just donates them to help pay for medical expenses and things like that. And so I did sponsor the last event that they had, and he had a $50,000 goal to donate, and I'm pretty sure he reached that goal. But it was just cool to give in a way that I would have never been able to before. I've always enjoyed volunteering at different things, and this was just a way where I'm like, I can't specifically do anything here, but I can at least give some money and hopefully, take the weight off of a family's shoulders for a medical bill, or give their kids a nice Christmas, if they're under the weight of bills and they can't do that. So that was a really cool thing to do. And I plan on definitely sponsoring some more things this year. So I'm excited about that. It's cool to, get your name out there and do stuff like that, but it's really about, helping the kids. The kids are one of my things where I really love kids. I want to help them. And then, veterans would be kind of my other, I think, passion project. So just finding more ways to get involved in that community, I think, this coming year. My family has a lot of veterans. Jesse's also a veteran. So it's one of those things where I have a deep respect for servicemen and women, and I want to figure out a way to get involved in their community. I know a lot of it requires, medical professionals and things like that, but there's always a way to give, whether it's time, money, whatever you can do to help out. So it's been really cool to be able to donate, and that's, a financial burden that I can take on that I haven't been able to before.
I know. That feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Well, let's talk about this a little bit because you're big in this racing world. So, like, you and Jesse are like at a track doing something all the time.
Yeah.
So, let people know. So, like, this is finding out who Olivia is. So, if you're working with Olivia, like, you got all kinds of crazy hobbies. So,
yeah, we do a lot of interesting stuff. So, growing up as kids, my dad and my grandpa were super into cars. So we were always into classic cars growing up. My mom always drove a classic car. She drove a Comet and a 66 Galaxy when we were growing up. And once you kind of get into that teenage phase, you're like, oh, this is so embarrassing. Like, it's a classic car. But now I look back on those days and, you're riding in the car, it smells like gas, and you got to have the windows down to breathe. And I don't know, you look back on it with fond memories. You're like, I can't believe I was ever embarrassed of that. Like, I wouldn't even care now. But we always grew up with cars and going to Greer Drag Strip. So me and my brother, we used to live near Greer Drag Strip, and we would hop the fence at the back of the property and sneak in to watch the races. So sorry, Greer Drag Strip. I pay every time I come now. So we used to do that. And
She's
then
a giver and she breaks the law, guys.
Yeah.
everyone starts somewhere.
A little bit of both. And so we always went, and growing up, we were always into going to shows and car meets and stuff like that. My grandpa's always had a ton of classic cars, and he would take us places. And when I met Jesse, it was just a fit. He was already into racing, and we had known each other for some time before we kind of officially were together in beginning of 2020. And I actually met him at a race in South Georgia that he's going to this weekend. And so it was a fit. Like, we always go now. He does drag racing photography, quite a bit, goes to all the big races, goes to the small tracks too. And we just love it. It's a super cool community. The racing community is, there's a lot of, I think, social issues and political issues that separate people nowadays. When you're at the track, there's nothing separating you. It's, who's the fastest at the light. If you're broke, somebody's going to help you fix it. And it's a community that very much resembles the community we have at the Barndo Co, I think, where it's just about helping and giving and having a good time. And you get, certain personalities that don't fit in sometimes at the track too, but it's really fun. We love going on the weekends. Racing season is starting back up now, so we're slowly starting to trickle in races. And we've had a few clients come through, I think, that are also into racing. The Turner family, that's how I connected with them. They weren't even my client, but they kind of figured out that we go to the tracks and stuff like that. So we'll probably see them at Greer this season. But it's a really cool community, and I think it's one that is a lot of fun.
Well, what's funny is like Ross is big into cars and stuff too.
Yeah, I love them.
I mean, I think they look cool. I couldn't tell you anything about them, but like, what's funny is you and I had that meeting again this year, and we were talking about, hey, what's the new selfish dream? And I was like, well, you bought the new car, and you're like, no. There's another one.
Yeah.
What is that one?
So I really would love to have a 67 fastback. That's kind of my goal. And I don't even want one that's, Barrett Jackson quality or, any of that. If you follow any of the car pages, you're probably aware of like Vanguard Motors. Okay. They do some beautiful stuff. I mean, full resto mods, like down to the nuts and the bolts are brand new. And so I don't even want something like that. I really want something that is basically a shell of a car, and I kind of want to start from the ground up and make it a project. So that's kind of my next goal. I would love to do it sooner rather than later. So my grandpa's still around, thankfully. And he's kind of the one that got me into all this. and he has so much knowledge of classic cars. I mean, people, not now so much. He's kind of officially retired himself, but back in the day, people would bring their cars to him all the time to do work and advice and help and parts. And so I really want to be able to kind of utilize his knowledge and spend that time with him to do a cool project like that. So it's just about finding the right one.
So if you're watching, you guys need to call Olivia and Onboard. Get started building your dream Barndo
ready.
so she can get this 67 fastback sooner than later. You heard her say it.
+2, preferably.
All right, guys. So now it's time for the Barn Burner segment of the Barndo Show podcast. This is where we get people from Facebook, social media, different places that have asked questions, and we put you on the spot to answer them.
Okay.
It's going to be fantastic. So the first one would be this. What advice would you give to potential buyers who are considering purchasing or building a barndominium for the first time?
So advice I would give is do your homework on the front end. So when you start talking to your builders, don't come in with kind of no general outline of what you're looking for. Come in with a budget number that you're comfortable with. Hopefully you've talked to a lender and you've gotten a pre-approval. But if not, have a budget number that you're comfortable with. Be realistic about your goals. So have your wants, have your needs list. Needs are, we need a 3-bedroom house. Wants are, we really want that steam room. So have those lists and be willing to negotiate on those wants because we want to fit as many of those in as possible, but you might not get all of them. And then also just be ready to have that conversation about, actual details, your land and site prep, what that looks like. So just going through the facts, going through the details, do your homework on the front end, and don't be scared to reach out to us, even if you're not ready to build immediately. I've had clients that have reached out to me. They're looking to build, in maybe a year. And obviously things are going to change within the company in a year. So we may not discuss pricing as much, but we can discuss process. We can discuss how we build. We can still discuss plans that they're interested in. So don't be afraid to reach out to us, even if your build timeline isn't in the very near future.
Fantastic. Next question is, what is your favorite house plan that we have and why?
Oh, man, that's a hard one. I really love the Aspen 1 and the Aspen 3 plan. I like pretty much all the Aspen variations. I think for me, when we go to build our Barndo in the future, it will probably be a variation of the Aspen. I think that house has great curb appeal. Love the dormers. We would obviously need maybe larger garage space, but love the garage on there. And then it gives you the flexibility to have that split layout. So you have your master suite side, you can have your quiet, and then you have the guest bedrooms on the other side of the house with kind of that general seating area over there. It can be a playroom for kids, but it could also just be a hangout spot for if you have guests and they want to stay up late and party and you're ready to go to bed, put them over there. So I think it's a great layout just to achieve a lot of different goals, and that's what we're looking forward to building in the future.
Awesome. So this next one is a really great question, and I'm excited to hear your answer.
Oh, no.
Is where do you see the Barndo industry heading in the next 3 to 5 years? And I'll frame this up to think that a lot of people think it's a fad.
Yeah.
But it's actually been around for like 30 years or
Right.
more. It has become more mainstream. And the question I get all the time is like, what are you going to do about resale? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, these are phenomenal homes. So
Yeah.
your perspective, where do you see Barndo industry next 3 to 5 years?
I really don't see it going anywhere. So, when you are on the phone with clients day in and day out and you're talking about their Barndo goals and dreams, some of these people are planning for several years out. They're not planning for in the next year. And they're also, a lot of people are building family compounds these days. They're looking for, multi-homes on one property. And they may not be looking to do those all at once. They're kind of staggering them as family members are able to come in and join that property. I don't think it's a fad. I think the structure itself is providing, durability and longevity that traditional stick-built homes maybe don't provide, where you're having, more maintenance on those homes. If a storm comes through, you're repairing those homes. Something is, messed up. And so I think the Barndo provides you a longevity to where even if you don't love the look immediately, we can do things to kind of get around that essential barn door look that a lot of people have in their mind. You know, we've done some unique builds, kind of like some of the Somerville builds that have stone. They have a little bit more curb appeal. They almost look like, you know, a Craftsman or a traditional stick-built home. So I think it will evolve over time, and maybe people will have different ideas about the looks of them, but I don't think they're going anywhere. I think the structure is built to last, and people want quality. They're building forever homes on family property. They're not looking for something that they're going to have to tear down and redo in 20 years.
You know me, I'm a statistical nerd, so they just released 2024 Insights, and one of the things on there was overall growth of housing starts was up like 8.5% or something, but single family was up 37.5%. And so you're starting to see some of this. Multifamily is always going to be relevant, right? Because of the cost of housing.
Yep.
But there is a huge push for single family, and what I think is happening is people are tired of the city, and you're getting a lot more rural development, and some of that is people are sick and tired of like the big city, and the politics and the geopolitics and all the things that are happening in that area, and they're coming and they're moving to other areas, but it's so full, people are developing super rural areas, and the Barndo is such a nice fit for that, that I think that even the housing movement is moving more, is setting the table even better for us as the next 3 to 5 years unfold, to where it's becoming a new desire. The newest generation, right?
Right.
The early 20s now, they're back to where they want a home, they want land, they want to build business, they want to do those things. Whereas for the last 15, 20 years, there's been a lot of people that, you know, kind of my age to your age, that gap in there there's like a 10 to 15 year gap there where it was travel the world, live in a trailer, tiny house boom, all this kind of stuff. You're starting to see a little bit of that taper off, and people are going back to the American dream, right?
Yep.
And they want to own their piece of land and build their home. And so we're seeing those trends nationwide in the housing industry. And then the Barndo thing it's economical, and it's, like you said, built for longevity.
You're looking at like in the last year, I've been paying attention a little bit on that financial situation. So the financial institution has basically unchained the ability to finance barndominiums. And you've noticed this. Like when we first started, it was like 1 or maybe 2. And now every person on the planet, every bank is like, oh, yeah, sure, we finance these things. So I was reading an article the other day about insurance companies. And you remember in the beginning, we were like, how do we get these things insured? Because we thought it was going to be a pain. And it's never been a pain for us. But that article was stating that because everything that a barndominium is built from, impact-resistant metal, impact-resistant windows, that it's a safer bet for the insurance companies now. And so now they're going back and
reevaluating,
researching, is it more economical to insure this home rather than shingles and vinyl siding where they're having to replace them every time there's a microburst or a small tornado?
Well, I think a lot of that comes with stability in the market as well. So you have companies like us that have came in and turned it more into a mainstream thing, where we're building literally hundreds and hundreds of these per year, to where now there's building science behind it. And it's not just a lot of onesie twosies where people were just kind of uncertain. It's becoming more mainstream. And the more it does, the more evidence and the better case you can build for how much better. Just from sustainability to economics, why a barndominium, if you're going to build a custom home, is a better choice for most of middle America,
right?
And we see that, like, we're not the cheapest option, compared to other methods that are out there, and we're not necessarily your luxury tailored builder. Not to say that we don't do those, but the middle is where we see most people coming, and they like the idea of it. They're chasing the rural aspect of living, and so I just think Barndo's the stock's just going to go, and you're just going to continue to see more and more and more of them,
right?
Well, anyway, thanks so much for coming hanging out with us. Hopefully everybody got to see everything that we know is true about you. You're
I hope so.
Yeah, you're awesome. And so, again, if you guys want to get connected and you want to talk to Olivia, they can look you up on social media. You can come in through our contact form and throw in there, hey, I want to talk to Olivia. I have no problem with that. Olivia is available, and she's, in our Duncan office. So if you're in the upstate of South Carolina, parts of Western North Carolina. That's kind of the territory that she services directly. And if you get talking to her and you're in a different part, and you at least want to have that discovery call, she can definitely, assist rolling you over to somebody in that area, because we do have multiple offices now and we're expanding, it seems like monthly at this point. So, but yeah, you'd be a great starting point, and you're one of the originals. So there's probably nothing you could ask that she hasn't experienced. So
yeah, probably so.
There's been a lot of crazy. So thanks so much for coming on. It's always fun to get to hang out with you.
Yeah, thank you, Ross and TJ. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in to the Barndo Show podcast. If you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this content, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And then be sure to check us out on all of our social media platforms at the Barndo Co. Super simple to find us. And then when you're ready to dive in a little more, maybe look around some of our available floor plan options, or take a look at the gallery of our work, or maybe you're ready to connect with our team and explore what it looks like to build your dream barndominium, you can visit us online at thebarndoco.com.